Hey Kage, back again, and today we're gonna discuss a game called The Day Before, which had a rough development time, and now apparently it is even closed, like it's not available for purchase on Steam anymore. So let's start. The Day Before was released by Fantastic on December 7, and the conscience is that it have been better if it did turn out to be nothing more than vaporware. And with that is a lot of people made videos before even it's released that the game is not what it seems, that it's a scam and whatnot. Well, theoretically, they were sort of right. It was an actual game, but in the end, the game wasn't what it was advertised as, to say the least. And with 13,500 overwhelmingly negative reviews on Steam just 3 days after it was released, the day before is experiencing the fastest and most well-documented implosion of any game so far this year. And with games like Rise of Kong, Golem and The Walking Dead Destinies having been released throughout 2023, that's a tough title to achieve. That is indeed a tough title to achieve. Those games were atrocious, but this game manages to beat them all. So when the day before went live on Steam, it quickly gathered a peak player count of around 30,000 users. And just 24 hours later, we can see that the peak player count dipped to just 6,600. That's mostly because the game's servers were borderline inaccessible, but there are other factors at play as well. For instance, the day before is already notoriously buggy even for an early access game. It lacks key features like melee combat, and it features strange, almost AI-generated in-game advertisements. It's not an MMO, as Fantastic claimed for so long, but instead it's more of an extraction shooter. When the base concept of the game changes just as it launches, you know there's something seriously wrong with the project. Exactly, and for how long they knew that it's not an MMO after all. If they would have just advertised it as it is, or made just a game that is an extraction based game instead of trying to make an MMO, when in all honesty it's the farthest thing from an MMO you can get, then maybe the game would have turned out better. So it was in development for 5 long years, and that's the time it supposedly took them to assemble the day before. It is a disappointing online zombie survival shooter that contains essentially nothing of what the originally promised over the years leading up to its disastrous early access. As I stated before, it is not an MMO, and it hardly passes as a survival shooter. And many people have reported that there's a lot of issues performance-wise, and so after a decently paced tutorial, the day before comes up short on even the most basic features one would expect in any survival game. Gone are the dynamic environments and tight firefights shown off in its now mysteriously absent trailers. Instead, you'll mostly spend your time running around a static cityscape that looks pretty at first glance, but offers absolutely no depth. You might find a zombie or two while scavenging for loot, but they rarely pose any threat. What shocked the reviewer of this article most about the day before was the notable absence of almost any UI. Sure, there's touchscreen display for your quests, which you can only track one of at a time, as well as a makeshift map, which is clunky to use because after the long animation to set it up, you have to navigate it exclusively with your WASD keys, leaving your character a sitting duck while you do. The inventory screen is almost bare bones, and even if you manage to find yourself in the same squad with other players, it's almost impossible to figure out where they are or even if they're still on your team. And that just sounds like a disaster. The one thing they advertised was the multiplayer aspect of it a lot, and even that is not done properly. I mean, there is multiplayer, don't get me wrong, but like they stated here, you can't know whether they are still on your team or what they are, so figuring out how to meet up with a random person would be really difficult, because the game has no voice chat either, and no multiplayer menu. So in all honesty, your chances of fighting somebody else in a multiplayer match while you were with a random would be quite slim, unless you found a way to communicate. So it's like basic features are not even there. And while we're at it, the last time on Steam it was reviewed by 21,563 people, overwhelmingly negative, with 15% of the users being positive. That's a very low rating. And while we're at it, so Fantastic changed their name to 8 Points as a developer, and they have, as stated earlier in the video, that they have closed their studio and so on, but then they changed their name to what I just said, and we also have an official statement by them. Today we announced the closure of Fantastic Studio, unfortunately. The day before has failed financially and lacked the funds to continue. All income received is being used to pay off debts to our partners. We invested all our efforts, resources and man hours into the development of the day before, which was our first huge game. We really wanted to release new patches to reveal the full potential of the game, but unfortunately we don't have the funding to continue the work. It's important to note that we didn't take any money from the public during the development of the day before. There were no pre-orders or crowdfunding campaigns. We worked tirelessly for 5 years, pouring our blood, sweat and tears into the game. At the moment, the future of the day before and Prop Night is unknown, but the servers will remain operational. We apologize if we didn't meet your expectations. We did everything within our power, but unfortunately we miscalculated our capabilities. Creating games is an incredibly challenging endeavor. We're grateful to everyone who supported us during these difficult years. It's been a fantastic journey over the past 8 years. That is the statement provided from their Twitter, well, X, known now. And I mean, as far as it seems, it's like they tried to make a game that was way out of their reach, or the directive staff didn't know exactly in which direction they want the game to go, and it created this mess what we see now as the day before, or those who saw it more correctly, because it's no longer for purchase on Steam, and it's like it was just a disastrous launch. And if you don't have a direct line of thought or a straight point to where you know you want to achieve your project with, but you have all of these ideas and none of the ideas are set as the idea, then it's very rare that the game will succeed, because there's no structure to it, and a bunch of ideas mixed together don't usually create a good product. And as stated by Geoff Keighley on X, the day before has been removed from Steam 4 days after launch. The developer is shutting down, and publisher Mytono Official has said it will open up refunds for those who purchased it. And the game was rated 2 out of 10 by players. I mean, it's always unfortunate that games fail, but there were signs that it would flop already for a long time, and honestly, like I said, they just needed to go with one idea they knew that they could do, instead of trying it to be an MMO. Then it releases and it's not even an MMO. It's a completely different game. So that's all for me today, and I'll see you guys next time.